If I could follow up by asking you a scheduling question, you have from the 10th to the 15th off, and then in February, you have a week as well. Would you try to fit something new into those spaces? I know Duquesne owes you a trip.
Yeah, good work, John. We will look to fill either the game with Duquesne or we're open to, another non-conference opportunity because we can. That I don't know how likely that feels, but teams could be in, any situation could show up. A team maybe hasn't been able to play, not because of their own issues, but because of because of their opponents. Maybe they haven't played in 10 days or something. But yeah, and we're going to look into trying to fill that Duquesne game at some point. We've looked at their schedule. They've already been to GW. I don't think they come to VCU, in other words, just trying to make it a little bit easier for them. But since they owe us the game, we'll work with them in the conference to try to figure out the best time. And naturally during one of our bye weeks would be somewhat opportunistic.
Nothing on the books for next week as of now.
Nothing on the books for next week.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, thanks a lot for doing this. Wanted to ask about George Mason has traditionally, been a pretty solid rebounding team. Are they similar this year in that regard? And what challenges does that present to you guys, just on the glass?
Yeah, for sure. Well, they are a good defensive rebounding team. AJ Wilson, who in our league could often be a 5-man, or, he has, being a shot blocker and a rebounder and the athleticism and size that he is. And he mainly plays the 4 spot for Mason. So that puts a very good rebounder at the 4 spot. They've had, these guys that they've had over the years, like Miller and like Green, who are 6'5", 6'6". They've had a lot of those guys since Dave has been there, and they're guys who can do a little bit of everything and happy to rebound the ball and bring it up the court. And they're usually averaging 4, 5, 6 rebounds a game. And so I'd say up and down their lineup, they have good rebounders. I think their style of defense also helps put them in good position to rebound. I'm sure it's an emphasis. And that does, we have not rebounded well enough and not as well as I anticipate we can. So it puts pressure on us, and we need to make sure that we're aggressive, that we're on our assignments in terms of boxing out and really going after the ball, because that is something that they do well and we must do better.
Are you guys, how much stronger are you on the glass when Tyler's in the game? And then how, just kind of does he play beyond his years to your, from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say we're much better. Naturally, if we start the game and we're willing to play 2 small guards because they're great, that's almost certainly going to be a bit of a disadvantage in rebounding. I think Tyler, because I think he's probably the first, great rebounder that we've had. And potentially elite rebounder. He really, does clean up a lot of those things and is able to get rebounds in crowds, rebounds that are not in his area. So he really, brings that closer to even to just before you start the game. As far as beyond his years, I would say not quite yet. I mean, I think I make no secret how great I think he's going to be. And he just needs to continue to play. I think, Jacob, I would more describe, he was beyond his years just in terms of how he saw everything in the game. And I'd say in that respect, Tyler can continue to improve. But once he does, I think he'll be, as I've said, one of the great players to ever play here.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
You bet, Mark.
Hey, Chris, congratulations on the 300th again.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
I got a couple of real questions for you. I know in games against Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Loyola of Chicago, the defending the 3 was a concern, even though you were able to win 2 of those games. Mesa's got some 3-point shooters, especially Kolick. 2 of the last 4 games, I believe he set career highs in points scored. What will be, I guess, the focus on defending the 3 better, especially against a guy like Kolick?
Yeah. Well, he is a very good shooter, and especially for a freshman, as we talked about in the scouting report with our guys today, he does not play like a freshman. He's confident. We recruited him, so we've gotten to see him a lot. And he is really a great shooter. And I would say, their other guys are guys who could make threes and could make multiple threes. So, our defensive 3-point field goal percentage is probably one of our two really good stats. The other one being turnovers forced. All of those need to get better. All of those need to improve and get better. And I would say, a lot of times the guy who gets the three, it's not necessarily his man who did a bad job on defense. It's a reaction or a mistake or a late anticipation of another defender that causes some kind of breakdown where the shooter ends up with the three. But yeah, we're going to really have to be very close to him, try to disrupt his rhythm to a certain extent. He'll do some ball handling for them. That can be, we can make that difficult, with our guards. So try to disrupt those parts of his game and then really be as close to him as possible to limit his 3-point opportunities.
And if I could do a follow-up, I joked with Jacob the other night about you guys, I guess, struggling a little bit at home, but on the flip side, you guys have done fairly well on the road, outside the West Virginia game. Is there a common thread to your guys' success away from the Robins Center this year?
That's a great question. I'm not positive. We were a good road team, last year, and I think we have the makeup to be a good road team. If things were normal, I think we'd have the makeup because guys have a lot of experience in hostile environments. Since the environments are just pretty static, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see at the end of the year how much home court advantage mattered this year. It would really be interesting to see that as we have more and more games come in and results. I do think, in terms of how even though it's not a hostile environment we're going into, just in terms of how we prepare, the consistency with which we travel, prepare our day of the game consistency, I'd like to hope that those things have benefits and, but we'll have to see how that turns out. But I do think we have the makeup, being an older, experienced team, to be able to play well on the road.
Hey, Coach Mooney, you shared your thoughts about the one-time transfer rule last season, and you didn't sound to be a big proponent. I wonder if your thoughts have changed as it appears as that's coming down the pike here.
Yeah, I think, anytime a coach expresses his concern with the easing of the transfer rules, it's perceived as being self-serving, and sometimes it probably is. But I think it's a little bit like, a teacher in a classroom who's pointing out, hey, these traditionally are concerning. These actions are traditionally concerning, and maybe the parent doesn't necessarily want to hear that, even if the teacher has experience. I just think that, what we're going to start to see a ton of is transfers at midseason, which already happened this year. Guys are leaving nationally ranked teams midseason. They have every right to, and that's more power to them. And I think there's a lot of responsibility from the coaches and the programs in this too, John. I think that, coaches, if a guy isn't playing as well as they expected and they want the guy to transfer, coaches are comfortable telling that guy to transfer. So I don't think it's all these guys got to be tougher and stick to it. But there is some of that involved. And if you make a decision 4 months into your college career, that just doesn't seem to be, what would be interesting to study is actual data. How well do those guys do when they transfer? I think there's this perception of he needs a change. He transfers. He's going to do better. I don't think that's how it often turns out. So, the rule has been decided or essentially has been decided. We'll adjust in terms of how our program works. And we'll go from there. I just think that transferring as a means to an end, have a better situation, great. I think as the end game, just transferring, that's to be determined for each player and each athlete. And I don't think it always turns out for the best. a big part of that is you've probably been recruited. If you're this level, you've probably been recruited for a year. You've narrowed your list from 15 to 10 to 5 to 3, and you chose your school. And 6 months later, you're going to make your decision in 2 weeks. And you can't, like for kids right now, they can't visit anywhere. It seems like that would probably, that decision wouldn't yield as good a results as your first time you made the decision. But we'll adjust and we'll embrace it, and hopefully it'll help us at some point.
Hey, lastly, for me, do you have any strong feelings about the possibility of the men's basketball tournament for the A10 moving to campus site, one campus site or more than one campus site rather than being played at Barclays?
Yeah. Well, of course, I would hope that it wouldn't have to, and I would hope we weren't in this situation at all. If it is, again, with no fans, it matters far less. There's an excitement, obviously, of playing at Barclays or when we played in DC or Pittsburgh. If it's on a campus and there are no fans, I think there's a slight advantage to the host team, but not nearly as significant as there would be if there were fans. So I think that's the conference. I know they're working hard on it and looking at it, and we're probably going to see what a bunch of other conferences do around the country. But that's a tough predicament to be in. I think everybody will be in it, and so it won't seem that unusual if we're playing on campus in March.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach. It's been kind of back and forth results the last 4 games for you guys. Can I just get your thoughts on the importance of kind of stringing some wins together now, now that we're in conference season, and just not going back and forth. And, I know it has nothing to do with like the preseason prediction or anything, but just for you guys, to string some wins together and put together some success. Yeah.
I mean, naturally that's always what you're trying to do. And, a lot of times it's how you play and how you feel you play. And did you compete? Are you addressing things that you're trying to get better at? Sometimes the score is in your favor and you feel like it better reflects that. But I think that, I think we need to be as consistent as possible. And, one thing with a more limited bench that we have, we should be able to be more consistent, and even if we maybe get tired a little bit, but we should be able to be more consistent. And I think that's what we're trying to play to. The last 2 games, we've had low turnovers, high assists. That's a little bit more of Richmond basketball. We haven't shot well yet, I would say. The Davidson game, but we haven't had a really great shooting night, which I think we're capable of. And I think if our shooting numbers, our 3-point shooting numbers can steadily increase, we'll find more consistency in our results. Otherwise, we really need to attack ourselves, getting better at defense across the board, and then just a little bit more consistent on offense.
Anything else for Coach Chris?
Hey, Chris, do you have an update on Andre?
Yes, I do. So Andre won't play against Mason, and he. I can't give you the medical evaluation. It's not terrible, but we need to give him some rest here for the next 3 or 4 days, which with the bye coming next week should help. And then he's going to resume, activity and being on the floor and things like that. So has a new medication. He's going to have some rest here for 3 or 4 days, and then he's going to try to practice on Tuesday of next week during our bye week. I should say he's going to work out. He's going to work out Tuesday of next week.
With the possibility of playing
Yes.
against BCU next Saturday.
That's what the plan is. Yes.
Gotcha. Thanks, Chris.